Und ich kündige unseren ersten Gast an. Für mich sehr ungewöhnlich, ein Holländer, der spricht nicht Deutsch. Das ist ja, wir haben es eben besprochen, bis auf so bestimmte Begriffe, Spargel und so weiter. Das heißt, Peter Kools wird diesen Vortrag in Englisch halten. Wir haben uns entschlossen, wir sind ein gebildetes Publikum, es wird schon gehen, er wird langsam sprechen. Morgen für die englischen Vorträge wird es eine Übersetzung geben, ne? Ist richtig? Das heißt, trotzdem, wir versuchen, wenn es Fragen gibt, stellen Sie die Fragen, auch wenn Sie es nicht verstanden haben. Peter Kools aus den Niederlanden ist Vorsitzender von Harm Reduction International, sitzt es in London und arbeitet seit 1983 in vielen Bereichen, Drogengebrauch, Schadensminimierung, HIV-Prävention und so weiter und so weiter und war sogar Herausgeber eines Magazins, das hieß Mainline, einer Zeitschrift, die sich der Gesundheitsförderung widmete. So, er wird uns was erzählen, eine Viertelstunde ungefähr, und ich sage mal, herzlich willkommen.
Dann soll ich vielleicht auf Deutsch anfangen. Weil ich bin so ein Holländer, die ein bisschen Deutsch redet, aber am bequemsten über Weißwein und Spargel. Und Miguel hat gesagt, es gibt mehr als Spargel heute. So, if you'll excuse me, I would like to continue my presentation in English. I'm very glad for the invitation to come to your national event. I heard a lot about the work that Akzept has been doing in this German-speaking regions, and I think it's an extraordinary development and a very important meeting that you will have today. Congratulations with your 10th anniversary. I think that is something really special. As you all know, I come from the Netherlands, one of the pioneering countries in harm reduction as well. If I would organize a meeting like this, I think that I would have the front row with people who would attend it, and over here there are 200. So I think that's an extraordinary achievement for your network. I speak here on behalf of Harm Reduction International, which is the international organization on harm reduction, one of the first and leading harm reduction organizations in the entire world. And I would like to talk briefly on harm reduction in an international perspective, not only about my country, Holland, not only about Germany or other countries, but how is the situation in Europe? I will present you 3 slides. One of how I think that the situation currently looks like, one on problematic areas at the moment, and a couple of suggestions and ways in the future. So over here I stated a number of items that I think that you will recognize as well. If we talk about harm reduction, 20 years ago this was very revolutionary, very unuseful, very provocative, and it was the best way to start a debate or nearly a fight with your colleagues. Nowadays harm reduction is completely accepted. There is no need to talk about do syringes work, is methadone effective, does it stop people from going in rehabilitation, is naloxone effective against overdose. No need to talk about that. That's entire scientific debate, took 10, 15, 20 years, but it's over. This scientific debate is closed. Harm reduction works, it is effective. So actually, And it works in a lot of countries in Europe. Actually, what started in a couple of countries and grew over the 1990s and the years after to all over Europe, harm reduction is currently one of the main pillars of European drug policy. It's completely accepted. And actually, Europe, Brussels, Europe, is currently one of the main advocates when it comes on promoting harm reduction on a global level. And at the meantime, we notice, and that's one of the subjects of this seminar as well, that there's a growing debate and discussion on the, let's say, the friction of the illegality of drug use. So that's a bit the state of the art in Europe at the moment. Unfortunately, I found more challenges than I had a good element, but even more good ways to go forward, but that's the next slide. If from a European perspective, I would say that there are a couple of problems, a couple of challenges. One is that harm reduction is accepted, but it does not cover, let's say, entire Europe, all the populations. There are huge gaps in national coverage. If there are countries which, if you put them on the map, they do have syringe programs, but it's only for a very happy few. The same for methadone programs, or not even to mention drug consumption rooms. So that it is existing, but the coverage is very low. Not even to mention the situation in prisons, which is even more complicated. Then there are a couple of areas which are not covered that well. And then I only mentioned two. One is hepatitis C, which is a big problem all over Europe, which is hardly treated. If you look at the European perspective, hepatitis C is hardly addressed. I know that there are, in Germany, there are serious action is being undertaken to get hepatitis testing and treatment into action, and I think that's a big achievement. But look at Europe, look at my country, Holland, for instance, and not to mention other countries, this is way backward. Another issue that I would like to address is that we notice that the drug problem is quite often reduced to helping an individual person with his social problems or with his health problems, and that somehow our community limits itself to those individual cases and does not address, let's say, the environmental and more social and structural causes that bring people into trouble. And another one that I think is quite prominent is that we are quite often talking about drug users, people who use drugs, but where are they? Where are they in our services? Where are they in developing programs? Where are they in the audience? So I think that meaningful involvement of people who use drugs is extremely important for the benefit of programs, but also from an ethical point of view. Looking at the politics, I think that you will recognize the issues that I mentioned over here. If you look at Europe, drug use is getting lower on the political agendas. Now it's on safety and security and, of course, economics and finance, and health is getting lower and lower and lower on the agendas. Now, one Beispiel. example is that the European Programme for Health currently has the name, it's not Health for Health or Health for Individuals, but it's called Health for Growth, Health for Economic Growth. But I would say that health on its own is enough, but that shows that even the people's one of the most important values, health needs to be sold somehow. It needs to be made acceptable. So there are quite some problems. This shifting of agendas is also reflected if you look at funding. There is less and less priority and less funding for our type of programs. I don't know exactly about Germany, but what I hear from some colleagues that there are less resources, bigger constraints, and the situation is more complicated. In other countries, UK, France, not to mention countries like Romania, where services are completely stopped. So harm reduction, our type of work, is really having a tough time. But what can we do? I listed a couple of ways forward. The two first ones are obvious because you are already doing it. I think that one of the most important things in our community is get organized. Get up. Let's open the offices and the services and talk with organizations and friends and colleagues, researchers, people who have a different opinion, go to journalists, get organized and come together. That's what you're doing. That's the big success of the Akzept network, I think. Another way that I think that our community, our harm reduction community, where we can learn and where we can improve, is that we should become better, even better advocates of our work. We are very good at explaining our work at home to your partner or friend or daughter, but when it becomes complicated if we have to convince other people, politicians, a neighbor, a policeman. I think that we have to really work on building our arguments to become more knowledgeable and stronger in building why our work is an essential part of our civilized society. And I think it's extremely important that we are proactive, that we are not, like I said, harm reduction is a bit in the defense in Europe. It is getting more complicated. One natural reaction would be put a barbed wire, a fence around our community and start defending our positions. I would say defend the values in your work, but the best way to do it is to collaborate. To collaborate with researchers, with people from therapeutic communities, with people who are in economy, people of public schools. Be open and explore new collaborations. I think that's extremely important. And actually, I think one of the most important things is that we have to get out of this box of helping individual people. Because I think it's extremely important that we should start to talk about, not about health and individual social problems, but that we should address, let's say, the cause, the root of much evil, and that's the counterproductive drug policies, which make things way more complicated and criminalize people and bring them in bad shape and problems. And it can be regulated differently. I think this is one of the main, should be one of the main subjects of our community, is to get behind our counters and desks and start talking about the cause of the problems, and that's drug prohibition. And there are way better ways of dealing with this issue. And actually I think that we are on the edge of something extremely important. These two British newspapers came out on the same day. It showed a very big, brave step in humanity, a man who stepped out of the capsule and went free floating to the earth. Enormous big steps for mankind. But at the same day, the head news says that we have to, that professionals, experts say that it's time to end the war on drugs. It will last until 2025, I'm informed, but let's make it 2018. I wish you lots of success with your conference, the network, and all the work that you're doing at home. Thank you very much.
Ja, bedankt Jon-Peter Kools für das Grußwort.